Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom. Tom, how's it going?
Hi, everybody. We get to do a show. It's going to be great. You said we were talking about Harry Carey, right? Was that right? Do I have that? Do I have that all right?
No,
No?
no. In fact, we were talking about Jaden Carey.
Oh,
Thank you. No relation.
that's even better.
Newest commitment for Ohio State. Jaden Carey, 3-star, 4-star cornerback out of St. Thomas Aquinas in Fort Lauderdale, a famous Ohio State pipeline noted for such former Ohio State defenders as Joseph Bosa and Nicholas Bosa and others as well. Damon Arnett, I believe.
Yes, indeed.
So there you go. Jaden Carey, 6 foot, 175, the number 21 player in the state of Florida, according to Rivals, the number 27 corner in the nation, number 223 player overall, 3-star by ESPN and 24/7. Though 24/7 says that that he's trending up for them. And Tom, second cornerback commit in a week, not too shabby.
Yeah, not too shabby indeed. Ohio State entered the week with no corner commits, and that was kind of one of those, all right, well, you still got 6 months or so until signing day, but you're going to need to get going pretty soon, and they have definitely gotten going because they added Deontay Malone earlier in the week, 4-star corner out of Massillon, Washington, another school that has produced a bunch of players for Ohio State. But yeah, this is a nice addition. This is not one where it's a 5-star headline splashy siding, but this is another really solid 4-star corner addition for the Buckeyes, Tim Walton. And they're probably not done there. We'll talk probably about some of the other names that are on the board there, but to go from, boy, you really need to add a corner to, okay, they have brought in 2 good, solid 4-star corners that could probably both play inside or out, depending on how they want to handle things. That's a pretty good week of work.
Yeah, it is. And with the situation with Carey, he plays outside, could project inside. Watching his huddle highlights, he is very comfortable playing zone and then drifting back as kind of a safety and reading things. So he seems like he's got a good head on his shoulders. He's aware. He's got the football spatial awareness stuff going on. And so I think that's something that the Ohio State defense likes, the ability to, we're going to ask you to do this, but you might also have to do this. And you're going to have to be able to know when and how to do that. And so it looks like he's got some of that. Obviously comes from a place at St. Thomas Aquinas where they take football seriously. And there's a lot that you've got to be able to do there in order to get on the field. And so that's a good sign as well. So he came off of his official visit to Ohio State last weekend and clearly liked what he saw. And now he is the latest, the 15th commitment of the 2027 Ohio State class. And, you mentioned Tim Walton, and we've seen them the past couple of years go get arguably the number 1 cornerback in the nation in Devin Sanchez and then Jay Timmons. This year, it's like the position funding maybe has taken a little bit of a step back and it's going elsewhere. So then it comes down to eye for talent and then the ability to develop, and playing at a place like St. Thomas Aquinas is going to help you. And it's a very professional type of atmosphere. And then, we'll see if Tim Walton has found another one and, somebody that he likes that can be developed and that is willing to take the coaching. And it's hard to believe that if you're at St. Thomas Aquinas, you take the sport seriously. So making the move to Ohio State means that it's going to be a step up, but kind of what you're getting into.
Well, you know what you're getting into, but you've played good competition. St. Thomas Aquinas you're playing good wide receivers. There's a lot of those South Florida Express 7-on-7 wide receivers that are on your high school schedule in the fall, where you're playing some of the top wide receiver talent in the country. And we talked about that a little bit with Deontay Malone coming out of Massillon, Washington. You're playing D1 Ohio football. That's big school Ohio football. And a name, you mentioned Jay Timmons on last year's class. You didn't mention Jordan Thomas, who was another corner who was like a top 100 player. Mm-hmm. He plays for Bergen Catholic in New Jersey. That's another school where you're sometimes on those ESPN showcase games where you're playing the big national, opponents. These are all guys who are coming in pretty battle tested. Jay Timmons plays in the Western Pennsylvania Interscholastic Athletic League, WPIAL, one of those big Western Pennsylvania leagues. It feels, I don't know that this is something specific. This would be a great thing to ask Tim Walton about, but is this something where they're seeking out these guys who have played high level competition in high school? Because then, you can learn what you learn at camps, and you certainly can see guys going one-on-one against, good competition at camps. But if you can see them having to do it within the structure of a defense and not just a one-on-one situation for 20 minutes at the end of a day of camp, that I think is really, really instructive. I remind me, I need to ask Walt on Thursday if this is sort of an intentional thing or if I'm reading too much into it.
Well, we know Jim Knowles liked his Philly guys and his Jersey guys for sure. One other, you mentioned, you alluded to another guy, another corner, and that's Monsana Torbert from Cincinnati Princeton, a place that sent Ohio State Paris Johnson. So another familiar place, but the number 102 player overall per the 24/7 composite took an Ohio State official visit this past weekend, is scheduled to take a visit to Michigan this coming week, and then will probably be able to figure out where he wants to go if he hasn't already done it. The former Indiana commit decommitted a little while ago, opened things back up, and another guy who is that kind of physicality. Not the biggest guy, 5'11", 175, could project inside or outside, but somebody that everybody likes. And I it's almost like I should go back and check his recruiting rankings at the time of his commitment to Indiana and see how it rose. You get the Tom, as we call it in the industry, the Indiana bump, the Hoosier bump, the Signetti bump. Mm-hmm. That if Indiana spots you, then you must be pretty good. Mm-hmm. And so now he's back on the market. And if you can get the best in Ohio to stay in Ohio, that's something that's one of the reasons Ohio State has been able to do what they've been able to do for a century.
Yeah, and they have not been able to keep all of their in-state corners home. There have been guys in-state who are headed elsewhere. Ace Alston going to Notre Dame, and Keishwan Telfair going to Penn State. So there have been in-state corners who have gotten away, but they have done a pretty good job of, Tim Walton has really stacked some nice classes in that room. And, to your point, you had such a good class last year. You can't bring in multiple top 10 national corners every year. The way the roster, the playing time works, the way the roster finances work, you have to kind of have your big year and then a little bit of a different year. And we're seeing that in other areas where, defensive line and wide receiver are sort of flip-flopping maybe a little bit with this year's class in terms of some of the priorities. But, if this is maybe you're spending a little bit less here. If this is your class and you've got a couple guys who are already 4-star guys there, and maybe you can add a top 100 kind of guy, boy, if that's it's not quite as good as last class. If that's the step back class, that is a pretty darn good step back.
Yeah, because I think there's only so far that you're going to go, and then you get pushed forward the next year, and things kind of just settle themselves again. So there you go. What are your thoughts? If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and throw them in the comments and see what you think about this latest commitment for the Buckeyes. Another talented quarterback, the second of the class now, probably not the last one. I know that they were sort of in the mix for the number one guy in the class at corner, and he recently said he's got a top 3 that does not involve Ohio State, so we don't even need to talk about him. I don't even know why I mentioned it. But if you can get 3 good ones in this class, yeah, because you've got some good ones last year, and then there's always, and even when we talk about last year, go ahead and throw Dominic Kelly in there as well, because a second-year guy that seems to have all of the talent in the world. So I don't know that you need anything from this year's class next year in 2027. I think they'll be okay, but eventually those guys will have to start producing. So that will do it from here. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you've not yet done so. If you have, thank you very much for that. We appreciate it. Hit the bell to be notified. If you're on the audio side, 5-star rating and review of the Buckeye Weekly Podcast, 5-star rating and review of Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning. Subscribe to both. it would be a grand gesture on your part, and we would appreciate it. So that will do it from here. Thank you all for tuning in, and we will talk to you all later.